Hello everyone, hope you're well. Thanks very much for all your comments on my last video about being socially anxious all the time and that kind of thing. I feel like I need to talk to Claire about it in a bit more detail because she's been messaging me all day about the things she's booking for our 2-week sort of replacement holiday at the end of August, where instead of going on holiday like we did last year, we're going to do days out here and there. And I feel like every single one of them is starting to fill me with dread, even though I'm quite excited about doing them. We booked Harry Potter World today. I think that's what it's called. The studio tour thing down south, Watford way, I think it is. Emily's well excited, although we're not sure whether she's mixing up the American one with the English one a little bit, but we'll show her it. She's very excited. She's a massive fan. Ollie oddly isn't. I don't know why. He said it's a bit scary, so I'm trying to convince him that Harry Potter is awesome. Claire's well excited, but as I say, the thought of driving down there, walking around and coming back is starting to niggle at me a little bit already, which is frustrating. We're also looking at doing Legoland, which will be awesome. I love Legoland, but Claire wanted to do Windsor Castle the next day, and I'm thinking that's just going to be boring. That's just going to be an expensive, boring slog around a boring castle doing boring stuff. So I've at the moment said I don't want to do that, and I don't see my mind changing anytime soon. I think we're going to agree to just wander around outside it, because standing outside a castle is about as good as being in one, unless you're trying to siege it. That's the way I see it. So other than that, yeah, I'm kind of... my worry is that we're all picking 2 days each on this week, this fortnight at the end of August, and the more we book stuff in, the more I'm thinking, I wonder if I can get away with my 2 days just literally being I stay home and sleep, because that sounds quite fun looking at it right now. I may see when Spurs are playing and what Spurs are doing over that, and try and get the family to go see them play. It'd be really handy if they'd play Peterborough United in a friendly, because then I could just go boom, sorted, that's my choice, let's go. But if I could get in the new stadium, that would also be cool, but I imagine they're going to be jetting off around the world or something useless to me. But yeah, it's all coming together. We're all looking at stuff. I think Peppa Pig World is one of the other things we're looking at. I'm quite happy with that, but then Claire wanted to visit some random Jurassic era cliff thing that's just been petrifying me since the day she mentioned it, because the thought of leading Ollie and Ben along a cliff edge looking at fossils over a cliff with a cliff high up just seems horrific. So no thank you. We'll try and see if we can avoid that one. That's not what I wanted to do a video about anyway. That's just me wrapping up from the last one. We had a bit of a fright yesterday, and I did a tweet about it, and I've had a chat with somebody, Becky, who gave me some good advice and thoughts on the whole thing. But we saw on Facebook that Ollie's one-to-one TA, I say one-to-one, she's responsible for him on the half days. She's kind of with him all the time. She helps out around the class, but she's generally his TA. She's only got him into the Pink Lady Apples and all of that. She's been made redundant as of the end of July. I feel like we probably weren't meant to find out that way. I don't know whether we were meant to find out, whether it really matters to us. I'm stuck in a weird... It's ambiguous, and our first reaction was panic, because we saw... Well, Claire brought it up to me, and I said, well, hang on a minute, it's his one-to-one TA. What are we doing? Like, that suggests they're not planning for school life beyond July with Oliver. We both were quite upset. I mentioned before that when I thought about October and his birthday and the fact that he might have to change schools, I got really upset and cried a bit about the fact that we'd try and throw him a birthday party with him not knowing anyone at his new school, and no one at his old school would come, and I panicked about it and got really upset. So I got that out of my system maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. Claire obviously suddenly had that hit of, oh my God, they're planning for life without him at school. What are we going to do? She started getting really upset and had a lot of tears about it. We were chatting, and I just said, look, it is what it is at this point. They're only going to do what's right for everyone. Talking to Becky on Twitter, and I really do appreciate her feedback. She did sort of point out it's not the school's fault, and I do agree. You know, I don't think we were ever really feeling like it was their fault. We felt like maybe they could do stuff to help us with it, but actually looking at the situation, they're screwed with funding, really. I feel like the writing's probably on the wall either way, but we were discussing how schools' fundings are so low at the moment and so bad at the moment that they are having to strip away TAs and get rid of support in the classroom and cut costs where they can. So they may just have decided they literally can't afford it, and that's that. You know, if Oliver gets his EHCP sorted, which he should do, then that might help in some way. But I was chatting to Claire about this last night, trying to kind of help her understand that it's probably very likely to happen that he'll have to move, because the problem is the school gets something like, and I don't know the exact numbers, 6,000-ish per student, no matter what. So in Emily's class, there's 30 of them. The school have been given, I can't even do the maths off the top of my head, £180,000, I think, to say there's 30 kids. So that's, you know, there you go, job done. 180 grand, so they know they've got 200 grand to spend for that class, so they can pay for the teacher for the year. Let's say that's 40 grand, I don't know. Let's say that's 60 grand for resourcing, who cares, whatever. 100 grand left to pay for all the other things the school needs to run that kid will need. Next class is the same, next class is the same, so it's about 200 grand per class, cut down slightly. Oliver comes along, needs extra support. The school say, okay, get an EHCP. The EHCP comes along and says, okay, that kid now gets £9,000 dedicated to them, but they don't say here's £9,000. They say here is £3,000 on top of the 6 you've already got. So then the school have to take 6 out of that costing and add 3 to it and spend it just on Oliver. Now, obviously that works for certain needs and certain issues, and that's a very basic overlook of it all, but that is the nuts and bolts of it. And essentially, if they're already struggling with, let's say, 180,000 per class, that could be, it could be way less than that. I only did the maths quickly. I'm thinking 6 times 10 is 60, times 3 is 180. If that's not right, oh my god, I failed maths, but who knows. But I know that's got to, I'm not also saying that that's lots of money, because it's not. It's got to pay for the teacher, the TAs, the headmaster, the deputy head, all the other staff, dinner ladies, you know, all the costs. You know, they've just had to rearrange their car park because it was dilapidated. They're covering the cost of all these things out back. I definitely get it that it's not a mean feat. I'm not suggesting for a second that there's loads of money spare. You know, I know how expensive things like the software these schools have to pay for is, and the hardware they have to pay for. You know, they have to pay for all these monitoring things and safeguarding things, and they're trying to build a room for kids like Oliver to sit in when they've got sensory overload and things like that. So there's loads of things they're doing and paying for. And don't get me wrong, schools are ripped off big time by the companies that supply them, like 100%. When I worked for a school, there was a book that they were buying all of their pens and pencils and paperwork and things like that through, and honestly they'd be charging you for a 10-pack of pens, they'd be charging you like 10 quid when you could get them for a quid in Smith's. But the school had an agreed, the local authority has these stupid agreements where they just get completely ripped off because it's the public sector. It's all stupid, it's all people with their nose in the trough. But anyway, back to my point, the school being given an extra 3 grand is no good to them, because they need to use the money they're given to pay for a TA, or to pay for the extra care or the extra time or the extra support. And so they're not having their budget raised by 3 grand, they're having their budget cut by 6 grand. And then they're being paid 3 grand to just figure it out almost. That money is only going on Oliver, whereas before 6 of it was going into the pool. So they've got to try and find a way to cover that pool money elsewhere, which is obviously nigh on impossible. It's like getting blood from a stone. I've been told that because we have sent the kids to, so we live in Deeping, which isn't a very well off area, but the town next door, Northborough, house prices start in like the 650k range. People there are very well off. Most of the children in like Emily's class, their parents own businesses and stuff like that. I'm not saying they're all rich. I'm not saying they're all well off. You know, a lot of them are like us. They've just sent their kid there because it's a nice school. You know, a lot of them are sort of your minimum wage even. I'm not, again, it's a nice mix, but there's not as much neediness there. The pupil premium is the thing I was told about. I've learned about it today. Kids in houses where the earnings are lower, and children who live maybe in poverty or whatever really, have these extra needs, have pupil premium applied to them, which means the school gets more money for them, which means they're more flexible, they're more able to balance things. When suddenly they lose £6,000 for a child, they're able to balance those books because they've actually probably got, let's say, 8,000 for this child over here who actually has no extra needs. They just come from a poorer background, so the school's been given more money because they might have to cover certain costs later on throughout school or whatever. So it's easier for them to balance that because it's not as controlled. Our school has very few pupil premium, I'm assuming, just from, you know, Emily's been going there for 7 or 8 years. I'm just making a broad assumption that is one of the reasons. I was told schools in an affluent area have bigger funding issues because of this, and that fits the bill perfectly in the way I see this school being. So yeah, it's kind of like, all right, okay, fair enough, that's a big issue. So the way I see the writings on the wall for us is that if that school's being told slash your budget by £6,000 and spend £9,000 on this child, but the school nearby is offered the chance to just take a child in with £9,000 to spend on them, they might be able to balance that because they're getting 9 added into their pot. If we go and look at the schools like Kevin's son Andy goes to, they're set up to accept children in with that £9,000 pot, and they make that work God knows how. So it's a bit different. It's a bit easier for them to say, great, that is a £9,000 gain. Whereas for his school now, regardless of what school he was at, if he was at the school in town here, they would be seeing a 6,000 loss and a 3,000 kind of plaster. It is tilted towards the school not being able to keep him. It just seems like the odds are against us. The writing's on the wall that the odds aren't there. It doesn't work. If the educational psychologist that's coming in next week, and everyone who does the EHCP says there's only little tweaks they need to make and they think it will be fine, then maybe there's a chance it'll work. But no matter what, it feels like the school are still being dented. They're looking to join an academy, which makes me think that might help. I don't know if I had things in my head I was going to say. With the TA being made redundant, I suddenly realised earlier on, before I started preparing to record, and I suddenly thought, she's a year 1 TA. Year 2 has its own TAs. It might just literally be that simple that year 1 doesn't, the new year 1 for next year doesn't have an Oliver in the class, whereas perhaps year 2 ahead had a couple of Olivers in the class. I don't know why I'm saying that. A couple of children with sensory needs or needs of a one-to-one TA. They didn't carry on last year's TAs to this class, so there's no reason they would carry this year's on to next year. Although that does raise kind of, why didn't they talk to us about continuity? I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, it's up to them how they do it. It's interesting. So I'm kind of clutching a little bit at straws to try and think of more neutral reasons why they're perhaps okay. They've perhaps just done what they're doing for their own reasons, and it might be nothing to do with us and whatever. It's just worrying, and it upset Claire, which then upsets me. You know, we're worried about what might happen. Bless him, he doesn't want to go, obviously, and he might have to, and that's the worry. On the positive side, though, I mean, we've got a meeting on Monday to discuss a lot of things, and you know, Claire wants me to ask the question bluntly, what does this mean for Oliver? Which is, I think, fair. That's fine. I feel bad for the TA, obviously. She's the one who's lost her, being made redundant. It's not great for her, of course. I'm hoping she expected that and whatever, knew that it was a short-term thing. I don't know why she's put it out like that. Maybe we weren't intended to see it, but she has Claire on Facebook, so Claire saw it. I don't know what to expect with that, but we'll ask. We also want to chat about the assembly stuff, but I don't really want to hammer that. I feel like we probably just need to move on and accept that they made a bad call, and maybe it was a good call for them. I don't know. I'm in two minds. I'll see how I feel, how the meeting itself goes. We have a call booked in with the educational psychologist. They want to chat with us. They wanted to meet us, but I can't keep missing stuff. I'm missing some time at work on Monday to go to the first meeting. It's literally Wednesday, the next meeting. I'm like, I can't just keep missing work. I'm gonna end up fired. They wouldn't do it, like, because they are very supportive, but I'm worried that it will get to the point where they're like, we can't do it. But positives. Bless him, Ollie's been invited to do his first ever play date with one of his classmates tomorrow, which is really exciting. He's getting on really well with a guy in his class that is into Pokemon like him. Bless him, they asked us if we knew where a good place to buy Pokemon cards was, and Ollie went and got like one of every Pokemon he had, like any doubles he had. He basically went and got them all, gave this kid a pile about this big. They thought it was amazing. They were like, we'll buy him off you. Like, no, it's fine. He's got billions of them. He was really generous with them. They've really kicked it off together, really hit it off together. Ollie's going there tomorrow for a few hours for a play date. They said it's fine. They don't mind Ollie just coming in. They understand the situation a little bit with Ollie, and we've sort of had a chat with him. I promised that I'll get him his Pokemon magazine if he just leaves happily at the end of it all, which is the only part I think would be an issue, is he might get a bit upset. But he's not, he'll be good. He's very well behaved, and he's been very happy and relaxed and good lately, and he's not been overloaded basically. So we're hoping he's well excited about getting to go around his friend's house. I mentioned in a couple of videos ago, he'd said he wished he could have a friend nearby that he could go and visit, and then next door started playing with him, and he was really excited. And Emily went off for a play date at her friends, and he was like, I wish I could do that. And it's like, it just keeps happening every time he really, really wants it. It seems to appear. So going to try and encourage him to start wishing for lottery wins next, I think, and answers to this. Interestingly, and this is another thing Becky suggested, was that if you were able to find a way to make it happen, a lot of schools will accept you funding your own TA. And I spent the afternoon just pondering, looking around, thinking, how much does a TA earn? Could I earn enough from a second job, go work in Tesco's like 6 hours an evening or something stupid, just instead of having an entertainment life where I watch TV and see my family, just go to work for another 6 hours and cover the cost that way. And I don't know whether that's realistic. I doubt it, but it's an option. It's kind of been mulling around in my head. Get a second job, maybe start writing better books that actually finish and then release them and earn enough to pay TA wages. I don't know, but yeah, that's hopefully, I don't know, something will come from that. We'll know next week what we're gonna be facing, but there is that worry there that the writing does seem quite clear. We can't get around the fact that whatever ends up happening, the school are losing money, and they are so tight at the moment and so worried at the moment, and they're going down this whole route of academy school and, you know, cutting corners and whatever they can to try and help it all work. So don't get me wrong, I think if they can make it work, they will make it work, and I'm not against the school. I feel like they're doing what they can, and, you know, we're just obviously part of the drag on their resources. It's just a challenge. Anyway, things are positive. I'm slightly worried about all this stuff, obviously, but it is what it is. I'm kind of used to it now, and I'm hoping that Claire's all right, and we're keeping that from Ollie until we need to tell him what we need to tell him, I suppose. But he's all right. Very happy boy at the moment. Everyone else is cool. I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks very much for watching. Yeah, I'll catch up with you in the week. I don't know what... It's Champions League final on Saturday, which is stress. I know we're going to lose. But it's exciting to see a team in the Champions League final. I don't think I'll do a video about it on the day. I don't want to jinx anything stupid. But, oh, one last thing. I know I'm rabbiting. I'm sorry. If you aren't familiar with them, Chewy Gem, a company that make chews for people with sensory needs who like chewing and whatnot. They have a podcast called the Sensory Podcast. I think it's called Sensory Matters, and maybe 3 months ago I did a recording with them where I talked about Ollie and our journey and our story, and that came out yesterday. I tweeted about it, so if you follow me on Twitter, check it out on there. If you don't, just look up Sensory Matters on iTunes or Podbean or the Chewy Gem group on Facebook. It's only the second or third time I've ever done a non-mature gamer, whatever, you know, not my own thing. I've done other people's podcasts, and it's quite exciting talking about stuff and just sharing our story. So yeah, check that out. Let me know your thoughts. Talk to you soon. Thanks for watching. Cheers.